One of the fastest ways to get to a million and beyond is by expanding your team. I'm Samantha Hartley, and in today's episode, I'm going to share ways that my clients have brought in team members to create more capacity, add more services, and free up their time for revenue generation and resting. I'll also cover common objections consultants have to growing their team, how to succeed as a leader without wearing yourself out, and new ways to think about the investment in people. Join me for an episode that will help you to see the possibilities in leveraging the time and talents of people who want to bring their heart and soul to your business. Hey, it's Samantha Hartley of Profitable Joyful Consulting, and I'm going to talk today about expanding your business with a team. Now, if you're like most of my clients, you already have a team. You probably have an admin or a VA who helps you with, menial tasks. You probably have a tech person, so you're not constantly doing your website. You might even have subject matter experts who work with you in your business. And if you're like most of my clients, you have a me. So I am part of their team. I want you to think expansively about team for what we're talking about today. These are the people who are going to come in and help you to earn more. What I'll cover today are roles and responsibilities and how those will evolve as your business expands. Secondly, we'll talk about leadership and how that changes as your team grows. And lastly, I'm going to share with you some objections and frequently asked questions that I get from my clients because they're not always excited to think about adding more people until we get over how it can really work for you. I've worked with my clients so much on how to manage, how to lead, how to incorporate other people into their business so that they can stay joyful in what they're doing. And joyful transitions me into what are the beliefs that nurture the mindset that is going to help you to expand your business with your team? There are limiting beliefs like if you want anything done right, you have to do everything yourself. That was a mindset of mine for many years. I truly believe that I grew up with that belief. That was a family belief that I grew up with, and I knew I was never going to be able to get where I wanted to in my business if I was stuck doing things myself. Also, the idea that other people couldn't do things as well as I could do them. Well, that started to be nonsense about the time that we started working on websites and other high-tech things. And I'm kind of techie, but not that techie, for goodness sake. So what are the helpful beliefs that you need to have? Well, if joy is one of my big ones, you need to stay in your joy and genius zone. That means the things that you're doing in your business are your genius area, like you're amazing at that, and they give you energy. That's the joyful part. You should feel energized by the things that you're doing. So anytime you're doing a task that you feel like, ugh, I want to kill everything, just cannot stand this, that is a sign that you need to give that one away or extremely minimize your time doing it. Very often, and this is a crazy thing, very often there's somebody who loves to do that thing that makes us nuts. So find that person, hire them for that task, and get those kinds of things off your plate. So staying in your joy and genius zone is really the core principle of profitable, joyful consulting. And I had a mentor, a spiritual mentor, who said, and I thought this was incredible to come from a spiritual perspective and say something like this, only do what only you can do. Look how much that applies to business, but like spiritually speaking, like only do, like on planet Earth or in my world or in my life, what only you can do. It really helps you have clarity about what your purpose and what your role on planet Earth is. So I love to apply that to the work that we're doing in our businesses. You can also apply that to your team. Like everyone on your team should only be doing what only they can do. And when you have those kind of clear delineated roles, it's going to be amazing for you. Second belief, you will not be able to expand your business the way you need to if you don't release to others. Expansion basically means there's going to be less for you to do because you're going to work specifically in your expertise and more for your team to do. And you may resist this, but I met recently with a client and we worked specifically on this issue, and she was overdoing everything in her business, kind of control freaking everything. And there was a crisis that happened literally while we're meeting together. And before she had a chance to respond to it, it had already been solved. It had already been taken care of. And we really had a moment to reflect together on that specific lesson. And that was, the less I do, the better it goes. Now, that was really hard for her as somebody who felt like all the things need to revolve around her and she needs to have her hands in anything. And it reminded me a lot of the lessons that I had to learn of like, no, I need to do everything myself. The less I do, the better it goes. So when you surround yourself with capable team members, that's what you experience. Another really cool opportunity for you to open up to is that the best team members for you are possibly your clients or they are already working for you. So the people that you're going to promote to higher and higher level positions can come from inside your company doing other roles, or maybe their clients. Two of my key team members, these are high level marketing leads, the people who are my representatives with my clients, used to be clients of mine. So what's good about that? They love the brand. They also understand it from the inside out. And they said, I'm actually as dedicated to doing this for you. Like, instead of learning how to do this for somebody else, I actually want to do this for the person who taught me and for her clients. So there might not be a one-to-one relationship for that with you, but just keep in mind that if you are thinking, I need a second in command, well, there's possibly somebody on your team already who maybe is like just doing a little bit of work for you that could end up promoted to a role like that. And the last really cool thing that I learned from Jen Eckhart of Entrepreneurial Freedom, and she works with million-dollar companies and their teams. And she said, the buyer of your company, the person who's going to come up and buy that consultancy or agency or small business, that's her variety of clients that she works with, the person who's going to buy that business probably already works for you. And I have this situation with one of my clients who has an eye towards eventual retirement and selling the business. And she has someone in mind on her team who she believes she can train up and that they'll end up purchasing the business from her. So that's a super cool new way to think about what team members can be, that it's not just low-level people who you just pay by the hour and you don't really think much about their roles in the company. It's a very expansive way to think about it. So those are some of the beliefs that I want you to take into this as we cover how you can expand through your team. So first, let's look at roles and responsibilities, because you can have people working for you already, but they're going to evolve as the business grows. What's nice is some of my team members have been working with me for well over 10 years. And so they've seen my business evolve from being a one-person business to bringing in several new team members to having a lot more revenue in the business, and the way that the business has evolved accordingly. And so some of my team members have taken on much larger roles, and others of them have referred in clients to me. The best example of this is when my business was smaller and we were maybe 5 people, a close person working in the business, and then a small remote team. And I had a team member who had started as a marketing intern, become a marketing person for me, and then gradually was working for me as my COO. That was great because he was incredible at all of the things that I was terrible at in terms of running the business and project management. And then we had the opportunity, because of the business expanding, to move him into purely a marketing lead, more of a CMO role, and hire a project manager. Let me tell you, when we brought in a real project manager, it was transformational. Because we finally had someone who had trained specifically for this role rather than kind of grown up through the business. And so that was just a natural evolution. Now, eventually he left and I brought in 2 other people to do the marketing roles. The business is going to grow and evolve and expand, but there's nothing like having the right deep expert in a specific role so that people who are doing 2 or 3 roles themselves, you can move them into those specific areas and have someone occupy their genius zone. So another example of this is a client of mine who came to me doing 150 to 200,000, and she was her. So doing pretty well for just a one-person business. And then she began over the years, as we were working and her business grew, to bring in more support staff. So that looked like admins, VAs, and subject matter experts, just as I was talking about earlier. And her business is pushing $1 million right now. And so she has hired more people and also elevated people into the roles that they had. Now, what's interesting about her is that she went from being a single fractional CXO, you can be CMO, CTO, CIO, CFO, right? So all those roles. So she was a fractional that, and then she became a fractional department. So finance, marketing, technology, you can be someone's department. And that's a great way to expand through team. You as a single person can only be that advisor, that single role. But when you have people on your team, you become a department, and the value of that to an organization is huge. Obviously, there are fractional CMOs who are charging $20,000 a month to the right client. But imagine if you are an entire department, you can charge way more than that. So think about what kind of C role you could hold, and if becoming a department would make sense for you. That's a really creative and lucrative way to expand, very simply from your specific role to bringing in more. So you can see how the roles change, the responsibilities change and evolve as you grow. So what also has to evolve as you grow is your leadership, because you're beginning by leading yourself, which is already a big job. Then you need to bring in people and you need to lead a team. One of the most popular episodes I've done is what's called Leaders versus Managers, which are you? And the reason I did that episode was because there are so many people I work with who are like, dude, I do not want to manage people. I don't want to chase them down. I don't want to deal with deadlines. I don't want to do any of that stuff. It's soul-sucking work. It just wears me out. And I get it. That is the role of a project manager or a COO or an integrator. Like, one of those roles is the buffer between you and your team. However, leadership is not something you need to outsource. Leadership is letting people know what the vision for the business is, what the culture you want to have is, like, what kind of a company do you want to have? And what I think is interesting is, like, this is kind of where we get into acting like we have a real business. If you're expanding and you're moving towards 1 million or even 2 million, we need to start bringing in the disciplines of corporate, where we used to work, or a real job if you had worked in a real organization. Many of my clients come from small businesses or family-owned businesses. They still had these kind of formalities there. So, for example, job descriptions, letting people know, here's what I want you to be doing. Here's the performance metrics, and having actual performance management where you're doing annual reviews, or ideally quarterly reviews, or even more ideally ongoing feedback for your team members. But that's a leadership style. Knowing how you want to work with your team and bringing a lot more intentionality to that is critical. It has been the bane of some of my clients' existence, but training your team members is really important. And, I know it's frustrating to take the time and to go and really dedicate it. It can be frustrating. But here's somebody who they want to do well and they're excited. And if you take the time to set them up for success, then you're going to see success, and that will expand you and your business. One of the biggest mistakes I see is not giving them enough information to succeed, not training them well enough, not being clear enough. My favorite delegation tip of late has been to work with people like we work with ChatGPT. What a lot of us have learned from working with ChatGPT has been, you give it a prompt, and then before you hit go, you say, tell back to me what I asked you to do in your own words. And then it will tell it back to you, and you can see if it's misunderstood something of like, no, that's not what I wanted. It's like having the wait staff in a restaurant read your order back to you just to make sure they got it right. Having someone, if you delegate something to them and it seems like it's complicated, taking the extra 5 minutes to say, what I've just explained to you is the task. Would you tell back to me what I want you to do? And then you listen for understanding and make sure they're clear. It's really considerate. What's the problem here is that a lot of times you think you were crystal clear, and sometimes they think you were crystal clear too, until it comes time to do the work. So if you're getting back work from team members and you're not understanding why it's not what you wanted, then a lot of times it's because of lack of clarity. So the other thing that I want you to know about leadership for team members when you're expanding is that people on your team need to have a career path. They need, like, where am I going if I stay in this company? I know that seems crazy because you're like, it's a VA, or that's my remote person who works over there. They still want to know, like, do I have a future in this company? Should I be looking for other stuff? What kind of stability and security can I expect from you? A lot of times people feel like, if you don't own an employee, then they're not going to be very loyal to you. And I'm like, no, if you really let people know, here's the future you have with me. If this works for you and it works for me and we're doing great together, then I'd like you to take on this new client and you're going to be the team lead for that. Or in a couple of years, what I can imagine is that so-and-so is going to move on to a yada yada, and you're going to be able to step into that role. So just imagine having that kind of success path for them, a career path and succession plans for your team members so that they can imagine a future for themselves with your company. I'm a big fan of hiring ahead of growth because I like to know that I have capacity. And so then I get excited about going and selling new stuff to fulfill that capacity. Some people are a little more conservative and they'd rather have those clients and then quick, let's get the team on board. If you're going to do things that way, then here's what I want you to do. Have bench depth, meaning for every person on your team, I want you to have somebody who backs them up so that when you need to quickly hire and have more people on the team, that you can pull from people who you already know, who are maybe sometimes working for you. The way that this can look is I have a marketing team member who is constantly working for me, but when she's unavailable or if things get really busy, then I have a backup person that I can bring in who maybe works on a couple of other client projects, but not quite as much as that initial person. In the case that we got a new client, well, those two are now full-time. And by full-time, I mean full-time contractors, or I'm taking more of their time as contractors. And then I bring in a third person who is the backup to those two. I just like bench depth. It makes me feel safe. It means people can take vacations. And it means that you're never the backup. If you don't have bench depth, meaning an extra person who can step in, then you're the backup to everyone on your team. I want to make it to where you're never the backup. Yes, the buck stops here and it stops with us, but I do not like it when something happens, suddenly you have to be the one to step in and figure things out. I want that there always to be an additional team member who can do that isn't you. Okay, my top 3 tips here, and they're kind of financy, but I think this is one of the things that prevents people from hiring team is all of the finance stuff. So the first one is I want you to know the return on your investment, know the ROI on your team members, know how much you're paying them, and then how much revenue you can allocate towards them. Even if you can't do this for everyone individually, you should be able to do this for the team overall. At minimum, the ROI should be that they're freeing you up either from tasks that you shouldn't be doing, or they're freeing you up from everything so that what you can be focusing on is revenue generation or resting. And listen, both of those are equally wonderful for you to be doing. If people can be working in the business and doing the things that prevent you from being able to rest, that cause you to work nights and weekends, then that is a great investment. You rested are going to be an even better rainmaker than if you are constantly overtired and working in the business. And if you have a team who provides that capacity for you and you know that you can earn more because of them, even if they're not revenue generating themselves, it helps you to be more revenue generating, then that's a good investment. The second thing that I want you to do, CFOs who've been on the show have advised that payroll, and in this case, it's any kind of things that you pay the team, payroll be kept about 15 to 30% of your total revenues. So it just gives you a benchmark. Obviously, that's a pretty wide range. Some people have less and a few people will have more, but it just lets you know that each individual on your team should be earning at least 3 times as what you're paying them. And the last thing that I want you to think about is focus on what you can be earning with your team and not just what you're paying. An expansive mindset is an abundance mindset. It means don't think about like, oh my God, this person's like $1,000 a month. It's like, wow, $1,000 for this person. Well, where's the $3,000? Where's the $5,000? Where's the $10,000 that they can bring in? Or where's the work that they can take off of my plate so that I can go sell something for $10,000? That's the perspective I want you to take, not on what you're paying, but what the potential for you to earn from them is. Okay, so lastly, I want to share some objections that I get. So when I talk about team, I'll hear from people who say that, I don't want to do this whole department thing you're talking about. I don't want to do any services or any delivery. I just want to do advisory. So here's the deal with advisory. You can, and you can still have a team that is going to help you with that. So for example, my client Bridget is doing this. She used to work with kind of like smaller sized companies. And recently, through our work, she's been getting higher value companies. So if before they were in the, low single digit millions, now they're in the 20 millions level. So her work is more valuable and she's earning more, but she's still getting sometimes inquiries from these lower companies, lower level, meaning just lower revenue companies, wanting her to come in, but she doesn't want to work with them anymore. So what has she done? She's brought in team members who, first of all, they can work with her on these larger engagements and she can sell them to these smaller companies. So they come to her and they're like, hey, can you come and work with us? She'll say, no, but I have somebody who works with me who can work with you. And so then they will go and work in those companies. So she is earning on the services that she's charging. She's helping out another consultant who is working under her umbrella. It could have been a referral and she could have gotten a referral fee for that. But instead, she's like, I'll manage this engagement for a markup on this person's services. And that's how she's expanding her business. And she wants to keep it all advisory. And what is amazing is if you're a consultant who wants to come in and do this work and you have a specific specialty, so it's either a duplicate of what she can do, but she's having them do that for her original niche, or they have a complementary service and she's like, I'll bring them in and I'll include them on this project. And that's the way that she has gone from about 100 $50,000 to about $500,000 is by bringing in these other advisors. It's all advisory work. There's no services. The second point I want to make, the frequently received objection to bringing in more team members is, I don't want full-time people. And then I'm like, you don't have to have them as full-time. You can have contractors. And they're like, no, contractors aren't committed. They'll come and go, they'll change. If you create a culture and a place that people want to work, then they'll stay with you. So I mentioned things like a career path, but also create a place that people want to work. They have that metric for larger companies, which is like the top places to work or best companies to work for. And it's always been my personal desire to be one of those. I want my team to feel like this is a great place to work. Now, some of my clients will do amazing things. One of them has like a monthly happy hour where she pays to have everybody get a DoorDash lunch, and then they get on a Zoom and just have a good time and, talk as people and connect as people. Others will have like Slack. One of my clients is doing an amazing thing, an in-person retreat where she's bringing them all to a beautiful place for like 2 days, like you would do a client retreat, but she's actually doing this with her team members. That's an investment in your future. The people who fit with that are going to be loyal to her and to that company as long as they feel that they have a future there. And the last thing is the objection of like, I don't want to manage people. I don't want to feel that I'm like constantly chasing people down and doing this stuff. I have to remind you, we're hiring adults. Hire adults who are themselves experts in their area. They're grown-ups. They can take care of themselves. You used to lead yourself when you were a one-person business. You can teach people how to lead themselves so that you don't have to constantly be chasing them down. If you experience any kind of annoyance with that, 2 things. One is make sure they're trained and know what they need to do, and that you've hired someone who's actually good at their job. The only reason you ever have to chase people down is that they start to get disengaged. So what needs to happen in order to keep them believing in the work? I think good quality communication and the ChatGPT thing of reflecting back to you and staying connected with the rest of the team. Don't let somebody just float away. Stay connected with them so that they are always clear on what their work is and that you're keeping up with them. When you hire adults, you'll get adult behavior. When you hire an expert, you get expert behavior. If we cheap out on our team members and we're looking for like that $3 person, you're going to get that kind of quality. If you will invest in someone who you think can be with your company for the next 10 years, then you're not going to have those kind of challenges. One of my favorite sayings that I have loved as I have expanded my own business is, the business does the work, not me. So I have gradually brought in team members who help me to deliver the services, and it allows me to elevate myself and my work to the things that I do better than anybody else on my team. The strategic ideas, the advice, the bonding relationships, the revenue generation, all of those things that I do, I think best of anyone on my team. I'm allowed to do that because I brought in team members who can support me. Imagine for yourself having a team who elevates you so that you do only what you can do, so that you are working in your joy and genius zone, and so that you are able to deliver the impact to your clients and to the world that you're doing through your business. It is possible, and you can do that with the right team. And with that, I am wishing you a profitable and joyful consulting business.